Morant with a running start. Elevate! Oh, it dunks! Oh, my goodness! Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance. Adams going long. Morant! Oh, he hit it! John Morant, insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. The Grizzlies lose consecutive Summer League games by 1 point. Edition. My name is Keith Parrish, and on today's episode, I have our good buddy Chris Herrington to talk Grizzlies offseason, a little bit of Grizzlies Summer League, and whatever else we get into. Chris, how are you doing?
Doing well. Let's do it.
I don't know if you caught the thrilling 1 point loss on Tuesday night where people I'd never heard of were playing. I was squinting through the NBA TV blurry vision. I don't know why the games are so, it was like 480p. It was like watching an old DVD. And I'm like, who are these people?
I was so angry GG Jackson didn't get his extra point on his potential game time floater.
It was an outrage.
Then I vowed never to watch Summer League again. So
how is Tomas Isolo not storming the court? Where are the coaches? Who is going to be our advocates to get that 1 point restored?
My real question. You don't have real camera work. You don't have a good view of this. Clearly,
right.
If you're not gonna overturn it, just don't overturn it immediately and let everyone go to sleep. Why spend 4 minutes debating about this and then only to not overturn it? You know, there had already been 75 fouls called in the fourth quarter of that game.
I would say the game against the Jazz. I mean, basically living up to how exciting the Jazz game was last year in Summer League. There was another buzzer beater in that one. The game against the Jazz, I would say, as entertaining as a Summer League game could be, that involved 76 fouls. So it actually had some good stuff in there. I mean, the Grizzlies veterans, I mean, GG Jackson was awesome. Cam Spencer, unbelievable. Jaylen Wells was fine. I mean, not great numbers, but
Jahmai Mashack came one assist shy of the rarely seen in the wild assist foul double.
Okay, so just for the listeners to know, we're not going to talk intensely about the game where Tyler Burton scored a lot, but we're probably not going to talk much more about the Summer League in the second game outside of Chris Jahmai Mashack, who awesome. I don't care if he, did get 10 fouls. And again, 9 assists, 10 fouls. That might literally have never been done before.
His head is in the game. He is doing stuff on the floor. He is not out there to get cardio.
I am not messing around. Unsurprisingly, I adore him. I thought, again, I didn't know he could pass. I didn't know anything about him.
Great.
I have my father-in-law, he watches UT basketball, and he he's raving about how he's just a great person. He won all these citizenship awards or something at UT. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Whatever. I mean, obviously he sucked up to me and you at his media availability, talking about how he watched Tony Allen. He's a big Tony Allen fan. So I'm like, all right, you're saying the right things. But I mean, you're the 59th pick. What do I care? You're pretty old. But 2 games. I mean, Chris, the game that maybe you didn't watch closely on Tuesday night, he banged in 3-pointers.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But let's get back to the assist for a second, because let's assume he is a legit. Everyone says he's an NBA level defender right now,
right?
But like a zero in offense, right? So there's this question of can he shoot, and he says he can, and then in the second game he played, he hit 3 or 4. That's good. But if you can, and it's not like he was playing point guard. He was just moving the ball, making smart plays, being aware of what's around him, and just moving the ball. Yeah. If you can do that, and you're an elite defender, you can probably be an NBA player. different era, obviously, but like Tony Allen did have offensive value. It was as a cutter, it was as an offensive rebounder, it was other stuff. There are things that happen on the offensive end of the floor that's not shooting 3-pointers. So you can find other ways to have value.
I mean, I think, wouldn't Tony Allen point this out? Didn't Tony score like 20 points per game in college or something?
No, that's right. That's why I raised my eyebrow.
I saw that Mshack averaged like 5.
Right.
He played 30 minutes a game and averaged like 5 or 6 points his senior year as a 23-year-old. No, but jokes aside, that one game, the connective passing, and it wasn't just I swung it to Jaylen Wells and Jaylen Wells dribbled over, or even I swung it, like he actually had some passes for dunks, for guys cutting for dunks where he caught it in the middle. And I'm like, oh, like you say, if he has this connective passing thing to go with the defense,
it's actually the kind of subtle skill that is there's sort of a dearth of on the Grizzlies main roster. Honestly, like that's always been a weakness for Jaren. Gigi Jackson, not a connective passer. Like there's sort of a lot of guys where that's a question mark.
Yeah. So I mean that part was exciting. Where I'm like, okay, maybe this guy, and we don't know yet. Like, do we think that he is in consideration for a 2-way spot?
My educated guess coming out of the draft is that he and Zion Pullen were sort of competing for one 2-way spot. Javon Small is almost certainly going to get a 2-way spot. Some kind of big man 4-5 combo big, some kind of front court player is almost, if they can find one they like enough, is almost certainly going to get a 2-way spot. That leaves one, and I think it was probably Pullen and Mshack competing for that. One of the interesting things about Mshack, and we spent a lot of time on him, we'll get off him, I guess, but when they acquired him at the end of the draft, and I tweeted this out draft night, you can go find that or put it out on social media. There was the organization was interested in developing him longer term, even if they did not put him on a 2-way. So whether that mean, you could guess what that might mean, but you can retain a guy's rights and sort of keep tabs on them. Maybe they're in the G League, not on a 2-way. Maybe they're overseas. There are different paths you can take, but they were interested in him as a longer term proposition without absolutely guaranteeing they were going to put him on a 2-way this season.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if it's down between him and Zion Pullen, I don't get the point of Zion Pullen and Javon Small.
Yeah, Pullen doesn't. I've only watched the one game 2, the Gigi Jackson game, before I started boycotting Summer League. and because Pullen didn't play a lot last season because he got hurt, and I wasn't watching a lot of G League.
Right.
I kept looking for something to grab a hold of, and nothing about him popped. There was no individual aspect of his game, not athleticism, not shot, not handle, there was nothing that leapt out as NBA level thing to really grab a hold of with him.
I mean, outside of the name. The name
it's a good name.
Zion Pullen is great for a basketball player.
Yeah.
He hit that he had a buzzer beater, pretty nice. I think that was game 2. I mean, Mshack, again, where you and I not in the weeds on college prospects or the draft guys, he showed enough in a couple of games where it was one of those like, well, why not? I mean, that guy, if he can defend and pass a little bit, it's like, all right, I'm in. As far as using a 2-way spot on a big, I don't think that big is on the Grizzlies Summer League roster.
No, I don't.
After 3 games, that's my call.
Instead of Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, this is Summer League 2, The Search for the Next Jay Huff.
Yeah.
So everyone go into scouting mode and see if there's is there a guy out there who has 2-way eligibility still.
Yes.
Is not currently under contract with the team. And you think, you can get on a 2-way and you can use them at the NBA level if you need. I think I put the search out for that. I've been trying to research the roster to come up with some candidates. It gets tricky because it gets a little unclear, like who already has a 2-way agreement with the team and who doesn't a little bit.
Right. It's also hard just to figure out
who still has eligibility.
Yeah, who's eligible? Like right. The Sixers got Jabari Walker on a 2-way, right. And I was like, what? Like that guy can play in the NBA. And so, I think we're going to get someone more like that. Not someone that's currently on the Summer League team, like the big Loverling guy. No.
Yeah. No. I think they're going to be scouting the other teams.
Baycott reminds me of a less athletic JaMychal Green.
I can see that. A little bit bigger, but less pop.
Yeah. No pop really. So we're going to be watching Summer League. I'm going to be out in Vegas looking for a big, I spotted Jay Huff last year. I did. And
Well,
so
I'm gonna throw a couple names at you for your scouting purposes to give you a head start.
I'm going to write them down. Just, I don't know anything about them. Who are they?
This is strictly my own. This is
Yeah.
zero intel at all on this. Just me looking at the rosters, trying to
Yeah.
guess somebody. Liam Robbins,
Okay.
who had a cup of coffee with the Bucks, and he's either on the Wizards or the Hornets summer league team. And then PJ Hall, who was on a two-way last year with Denver, and they let him go.
I know PJ Hall. Yeah, I know who that is.
He's also on one of those two teams. When I was trying to take a stab at likely candidates, those are the two names that jumped out to me.
Yeah, it seems like you want that lob catching, good rebounding, screen setting big guy, but I don't know who that is. Right. Before we leave Summer League behind, what, if anything, are we supposed to take away from the performance of the vets of Jaylen Wells, Cam Spencer, and Gigi Jackson?
So I'm not that animated about Jaylen Wells in Summer League. I'm not someone who's like, he's too good for Summer League, shut him down. I always find that stuff funny because these guys are going to play basketball anyway. And why not play basketball on TV so we can watch them? My thing with Jaylen Wells is I feel like the band is narrow on him. I think he's a high floor, low ceiling guy coming out of his rookie season. I don't really expect him to be anything different than what he's been. I hope that he will be a better version of what he already is, which is a 3-and-D guy. Like, I don't think he's ever going to create a lot of offense on the ball and develop into that kind of player. I just think he sort of is what he is. I hope he gets better at it. That's not Gigi is much more of a ball of clay, and Cam Spencer is less known because he just hasn't played as much. With Spencer, I wonder how much we can really learn because we know he can shoot. Yeah. We know he can process the game. The questions for him are, can you handle the ball against pressure? And that's been shaky. His turnovers are pretty high in these two Summer League games. And can you hold up at all defensively? And I don't think we're going to find that out in Summer League because that's not how Summer League works. Like, this is not a playoff game where coaches decided, okay, we got to win this. We're picking on Cam Spencer right now. They're just guys out there running around, right? So I think Cam Spencer is a good basketball player. I don't know whether he's a real NBA player. And him making shots in Summer League games doesn't necessarily tell me a lot on that.
Yeah.
So I think Gigi's the most interesting, even though he's year 3 and you're not even supposed to be there in year 3. But he's just such an anomaly. Like, you're not supposed to be that young in year 3 either. Like, he's still younger than all these other dudes.
Yeah, he's a full year younger than everybody else on the Summer League team.
Right. And I do think with Gigi and Drew, my colleague Drew Hill has a good story today. He talked to Gigi. He said some of the stuff late in the season too, but sort of circling back around to him admitting that he was expecting a little too much. He got a little ahead of himself. That's my paraphrase, and he had to sort of humble himself a little bit. Gigi was good in Summer League last season too, but I think what we're seeing with Gigi in these games is quick decision stuff. It's still a scoring oriented game, right? It's a get buckets kind of game, but it's catch and shoot looks good and quick, hard moves to the rim. He's attacking. He's not playing with the dribble as much. It doesn't seem to me. He's going hard to the rim. He's rebounding. He's going up over the top of people and dunking. He's playing with a lot of force in terms of getting to the rim and finishing at the rim. And that's kind of, whether he ends up being a starter or a bench guy or nothing at all, I think he's always going to be a get buckets kind of player. That's just, some players are like that, and that's kind of what he is, I think.
Yeah, I was super impressed with how he played already in Utah, and it's the dunking in traffic, the dunking off the dribble, the type of thing that he shows where he just has a different level of athleticism and size and skill. And I then also want to reemphasize he was this awesome last summer. Of course, he broke his foot in the offseason and it was a lost season, maybe for those other things that is in Drew Hill's article, like he got ahead of himself. But like last year specifically, I mean, he was in contention for the Summer League MVP along with Scottie Pippen Jr. I'm pretty sure he was like first team all Summer League. He averaged something like 23 and 8 in the games in Las Vegas. And we were excited as a fan base. We were like, whoa, he's attacking the glass. He's getting a lot of second chance scoring. And again, physically, he stands out against all these other, again, sub NBA players. He physically stands out. So we were excited. So like, I don't know if there's anything he can do now where I get excited because I'm like, well, he was awesome last summer.
It's the kind of thing where Summer League can do more harm than good. And so a good Summer League doesn't prove anything for Gigi Jackson.
Yeah.
But if he were having a terrible Summer League, it might put his roster spot in jeopardy, right?
That's true.
So
that's true.
Yeah. So I think having a good Summer League, doing it for this new head coach and who's coaching the team, and Thomas Isolo, I think can give Gigi Jackson some decent momentum going into training camp to be in the mix, especially if Jaren is going to miss the start of the season. We already know Zach Edey will. Gigi is big enough to play the 4. They're not super deep in the front court. I think if he can stay healthy and build off of this, he could have some momentum to get back in the mix in training camp.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always better to be, like as far as drawing conclusions from summer league, it's always better to like be good as opposed to be bad, or to make, like for Cam Spencer, it's better to make your shots than not make your shots, even if we can't draw a lot of conclusions. Yeah. Very impressive from Gigi so far. Cam Spencer had, I think, 7 threes in that game. And I mean, he scored 50 in a G League game. So like Cam can shoot. We know that. As far as the play style, like maybe we're trying to infer like, all right, because our for real head coach is coaching. We have our coach doing the summer league team. It's the same part of the new coaching staff. I think Brian Collins, new hire. I don't think we've talked about him. He's there. He comes over from TSU. Like Jason March is there. The normal lead assistant is there. Do you think Ja Morant's watching the style of play and getting ready to full court press all season?
Well, Ja did that at the beginning of last season. He really did. Ja was doing that early last season, and then like the injury stuff started happening. And it's kind of thing where you wonder if you can really sustain it over 82 games anyway. Can you sustain it over 48 minutes or whatever? But Ja actually did that early last season, and it was like notable. I mean, that's something that was noted and talked about early last season. I do think Ja is better equipped to play that style. Buy-in is a different question, right? I do think he's better equipped to play that style, say, than Desmond Bane was. I would put a pin in that. Certainly than Luke Kennard was. Now, Ty Jerome, I don't know, but that's a good value play. But I do think that Isolo wants to have more athletic, aggressive defense on the perimeter. And you see that in style, and you see that to some degree in some of the roster stuff. I think they were excited to keep Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in part because he does fit that, right? I think it's a good style for Jaylen Wells. It's a good style for Scottie Pippen. I think if he gets an opportunity, it'll be a good style for Vince Williams Jr. Cedric Howard's never played, but like he's got a 7'2" wingspan or whatever. It's an athletic wing. So I do think this is a sign that they press full court for 48 minutes every NBA game. I'm skeptical of that. But I do think they want to have a more aggressive, athletic perimeter defense. Yeah.
And we have seen some success. I mean, both the Pacers and the Thunder would do. The Pacers, even more than the Thunder, would actually try to pick up full court maybe more than we're accustomed to seeing in the NBA. It used to always be people don't press in the NBA because everyone can dribble. But now it's gotten to the point where people like slowing down just possessions just a little bit.
I think what the Pacers did and the way they looked is very much, and the Thunder too, but the Pacers I think in particular are very much something to look at for what the Grizzlies aspire to from a place in terms of play style, in terms of pace, in terms of utilizing their roster. I wrote a column about this during the playoffs. There was an interesting True Hoop piece by Henry Abbott on his True Hoop Substack about this. He called it the intensity system. And he had pulled this quote from Kenny Atkinson after they got bounced by the Pacers. Kenny Atkinson saying, like, they're just at a different level of intensity, and we just couldn't keep up with it. And Henry wrote about how, they played this deep rotation, they play the fast pace, and their idea is that we wear other teams down, and then in the fourth quarter, like, we can still play this intensity, they can't, and we pull away. That was sort of the idea with the Grizzlies last season. They had real execution problems with that. But I think that is Isolo's philosophy, and I had an exchange with him after he got the job, and I wrote about it a few times, where he articulated that. But he said, I know this. If we can't play with a greater intensity than the other team, we can't do that. We have to go away from it. And he went away from it in the playoffs because it wasn't working for the team. They lost Brandon Clark and Jaylen Wells. They didn't have the depth. Maybe the personnel didn't totally fit, and he went away from it. But he went away from it as a short-term pragmatic thing. He's going to go right back to it and try to make that work.
Yeah. Putting a bow on Summer League, just for the listeners, Cedric Howard hasn't played yet and still is
that's
doubtful, apparently.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to play.
Returning from that shoulder injury that he suffered college last season. Javon Small missed the last 2 games with a groin issue, I think. Right. And that is everything from Summer League. Chris, there's a report this morning. I don't know how real it is. I like the framing of this. Tarik Biberovic who the Grizzlies took in the second
There's
round a
another
couple
one
years
this
ago.
morning.
There's another
Okay,
report
what is
out,
it now?
Chris. There's been these reports that he's coming over. He's coming over, and now apparently there's a report that he has spurned the Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh, God.
He has rejected the overtures of the franchise to stay overseas. He's going to play for Fenerbahce again.
I've tried to impress upon people not to take the European report super seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a long history with this. I still remember the year where there was some European report that the Grizzlies were signing Luigi Datome, and Grizzlies Twitter was all aflutter about the arrival of Luigi Datome, and like they were never signing Luigi Datome. I don't want to get too far down the road on this one, but I have a pretty good sense the Grizzlies like Biberovic. They think he's a real NBA prospect. He may well play for the Grizzlies someday. I'm pretty sure there has never been a serious interest in bringing him over this season. And you can also just look at the roster situation the Grizzlies have had all the way through the process.
Yeah. So it seems possible from Tarik's side, present it as, oh, I've turned them down. I'm staying overseas. Much like, who knows if the actual offer was
I mean, the last time this report came out that he was going to sign him with the Grizzlies, they had 16 players on a 15-man roster, and they needed a big. Like they weren't trying to bring over a 6'6" small forward who's never played in the NBA.
Yeah. Anyways, Chris, let's take a break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about the main roster. All right, Chris, we haven't actually talked in a while. The Grizzlies, of course, have done lots of things. They traded away Desmond Bane. They did the draft. They got aggressive, went up and got Cedric Howard. They also very recently acquired Jock Landale after moving on from Jay Huff. Let's start with Jock Landale, actually. I'm kind of excited about Jock Landale in the sense that like he just fills a specific need. This is where I'm at.
We're really in the weeds. We're getting excited about Jock Landale.
We're really in the weeds, right? in the sense that like, I mean, it's a no cost signing essentially. Although
he's got a cool name and he's from Australia.
Yeah.
But as a basketball player, he's a pretty vanilla player. You know,
he's a vanilla player who happens to be better than all our centers, except for a healthy Zach Edey. And as maybe the person who is, of all the public speaking Grizzlies people, which I consider myself one of, I might be the lowest on Zach Edey. And Jock Landale, to me, that's a proven NBA guy. Could just soak up 20 minutes, which I'm not totally like, I don't think it's going to be a huge dip when Zach Edey comes off the court. I hope it is. I hope all of a sudden Zach Edey's way better than Jock Landale, but just getting a useful, okay, fine. We can now win some basketball games just with like a 20 minutes of this. So is that too optimistic for Jock Landale?
No, it's been funny listening to some of the like national pods to the degree that they've talked about this at all. And I like the Jay Huff fit in Indiana fine. Jay Huff is going to put up better numbers this season than Jock Landale will. I do think that's true.
Yeah.
But Jay Huff is someone who looks better from a distance than up close. And so it's interesting to hear like how high some of the people who don't watch the Grizzlies every day were on Huff. And then when you watch the Grizzlies every day, you can sort of see the issues. And I think the issues were compounded, and this is what it's really about, by the coaching change and style of play, the shift in style of play. I think Jay Huff was a better fit for the way Taylor Jenkins was trying to play at the beginning of last season, that Noah LaRoche system. That's more about spacing and cutting. And I think Isolo wants his center to set screens and crash the boards.
Yeah.
And Landale is a much better fit for that. So I think it's about two things. One, you're flipping one 28-year-old backup reserve minimum contract center type for another, and you're getting a second round pick and a pick swap to do it. So you're picking up the asset for what's more of a lateral kind of move. But then it's really about system. It's about Landale fitting the way Isolo wants to play in a way that Huff, I think, may have just not fit very well at all. And I think a sneaky part of this, and this is the concern I've been voicing since the Edey injury, is that it's not just missing Zach Edey to start the season. It was missing Zach Edey for training camp.
Yeah,
when
sure.
Isolo is trying to install this system, and the system is predicated in part on the hyper-specific Zach Edey skill set, right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of hard to install what you want to do if Zach Edey's not an active participant. And then if you're having to play a different style to get by without Zach Edey, and now you bring Zach Edey back, it's just a lot of messiness with that.
Yeah.
I think Landale is going to help them sort of play the way they want to play from the jump, and then be ready to have a smoother transition when Edey comes back.
I think one thing that I enjoy about Jock Landale, and I cannot pretend to be a Jock Landale expert, but from what I've seen of him, this is playing in the NBA and also playing for Australia and like FIBA stuff, is like he has feel. Like like kind of what we were saying about Mshack. Like he just has feel. He's one of those guys who has probably maximized his physical skills, of course, made it to the NBA, and like he's just a useful big who understands where to move, where to be, how to rebound, can pass a little bit, but can pick and roll. All of the feel is there. And that I enjoy. And I feel like, again, we've talked about it. Some of the Grizzlies players don't have feel, it seems like.
Well, and the Rockets were successful with him on the floor. And so, he's one of these, he's a little bit like of a, Conchar at the 5 kind of situation. Like you want him to be the 5th best player in your lineup.
Yeah.
But if he's the 5th best player in your lineup, he's surrounded by more talent. He's the guy who has a history of fitting in and getting good team basketball out of that, right? Yep. And so if you put him on the floor with Jaren Jackson Jr. and John Moran and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Jaylen Wells in a lineup, and he's screening and rebounding and moving the ball when he needs to move the ball and like just fitting in and letting the other guys do the heavy lifting, like it would probably work okay.
Yeah. There, we fulfilled our Jock Landale quota. What's the what are your thoughts actually? I mean, I've heard your thoughts some, but like the Desmond Bane trade is monumental in the history of the Grizzlies.
My thing with the Bane trade is I think they chose a path with the Bane trade. I think it was a reasonable and rational path to choose. I don't think it was a necessity to choose that path though.
Yeah.
I think it would have been reasonable and rational to choose the other path, which is keep Desmond Bane. Now, you keep Desmond Bane, you're severely limited in how you can sort of reshape the roster in the short term around that. And so you're probably just hoping for some internal growth, and you still get the room exception, so you still could assign Ty Jerome or someone else. Yep. There's other things you couldn't have done, but I think that team could have been really good with those 3 guys, and you sort of move forward with that. But I think it's reasonable to do what they did, given the magnitude of return they got from Desmond Bane.
Yes,
because now they're on a path where they're sort of accepting a likely sort of short-term regression. And I think the ED injury like adds to that. But they're trying to build a team that they think has a higher ceiling around Morant and Jackson, and that fits Isolo's style. I think Isolo is a real part of this. And the flexibility you get from breaking that Bane contract up into multiple players and picks. And then the real cherry on top is the real sort of the significant thing that makes it worthwhile to do is the quality of that pick. You're getting the 2026 pick from Orlando. That's likely, not certain, but likely to be a Phoenix pick. It is likely to be a top 10 pick. There's a chance it's a 2 through 4 pick in what people think is a loaded draft.
Yeah.
And so, you're taking a swing. First, you get Cedric Howard out of this.
Yep.
And you're going to get a top 10 pick in a loaded draft. And that's not all you get. You still got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and a 4th first-round pick on top of all that. But So you break it into a lottery pick and a good draft, Cedric Howard, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and another future first. That gives you a lot of ways it can work, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to hit on Cedric Howard and that lottery pick. You hit on one of them in a major way, And so, and I think the idea of putting more length and athleticism around Ja, I do think makes some sense. The one thing about the Bane Morant backcourt, as good as it was offensively, it sort of locked the team into some structural problems, and they dealt with them very well. But they always had the structural problem of we have to account not just for Ja on defense, we sort of have to account for Bane too. That's another thing when you listen to national reaction. I think people have really overrated the Desmond Bane defense a little bit. They were always in a situation where they felt like their small forward had to be able to guard point guards, and so like Dylan Brooks was the small forward who guarded the lead guard. And then Marcus Smart was supposed to be the small forward who guarded the lead guard. And now Jaylen Wells is in the small forward, has been the small forward who guards the lead guards. I think the idea is you're going to always have Morant surrounded by a couple. Maybe he'll play some with Ty Jerome, but I bet not a lot. He'll always have a couple of athletic defensive types that give you more versatility. And so it'll be Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Jaylen Wells, or sometimes it'll be Vince Williams, sometimes it'll be Scottie Pippen, sometimes it'll be Cedric Howard. The idea of having more athleticism around Ja, I think gives the team some more flexibility. So I think this is an interesting path. I think it's one that might work. It also puts them in better position to blow it up, completely rebuild if they feel like they have to.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the plan. Obviously, when you sign Jared to that extension, that's not the plan. But I think they chose a rational path. I think so far they've executed it pretty well. But I don't think it was a path of necessity. I think they could have chosen to go the other way.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of great points. I agree with I mostly agree. Like as far as the general, it was a reasonable thing to do. Absolutely. It was a reasonable thing to do with the paths that it opened up for you. The concern, of course, is how do they execute this? And you have now taken another step back, a short term, maybe detour to try to get even higher or get further than you made it. But it's like we have 3 of the 5 starters are worse than they were 2 years ago. And when will they be better? I'm
going to say we don't know they've taken a step back. I think they have allowed that they might, and they're willing for that to be the case.
Yeah.
They were 8th last season in the West.
So
I think the range is higher and lower than that.
So you're on board. You're on board. The Desmond Bane trade is the new Rudy Gay trade.
No, I wouldn't say that because that was an immediate. We're rerouting touches. The Rudy Gay trade was the Jonas Valanciunas trade.
Well, I'm saying
we're doing this in part to shift touches to other players. This is a thing where I think they probably underachieved last season to finish 8th, and so it wouldn't surprise me if things clicked by the end of the season. And you're 7th or 6th. I think that's very possible in the West. You could also be 9th, 10th, 11th. But I don't think we're just assuming that it's a step back. I think it's a willingness for it to be a step back, because I do think the plan they have decided to pursue was not a one summer plan. Yeah. To me, it is a 3 transaction window plan. It's this summer, it's the trade deadline, and then it's next summer when that good pick comes in. And I think they've chosen to reshape the roster around John Jaren, knowing that it's not an immediate process, that it's a process that will take about a year. If it works, it'll take about a year to really take hold.
So my other criticism is this is a common tactic in the NBA to release yourself from pressure. Like there's no longer any expectation or pressure that the Grizzlies win a playoff series this year. They've given themselves, hey, we made this great. We got all these first round picks back. Now we can get in the lottery next year, maybe with the Phoenix pick, hopefully not our own pick. But now there's no longer this, hey, we were the 2 seed for a couple years in a row. What happened? It's like, well, now we're taking a step back. So I don't love that. But I guess I can now be optimistic about cheering against the Suns. I also feel like it gives them permission, like you sort of said, it gives them permission to steer the ship into a tank if the year goes poorly. If it starts going badly, you're like, well, you know what? It was always going to be a step back this year. Let's go get Cam Boozer or somebody.
Well, your best case scenario is you don't steer it into a ship and you still get Cam Boozer. That's right.
What best case scenario is the Suns completely fail. Yes, absolutely. Right, that's what we're all cheering for.
This team this won't happen, but this team could be in the Western Conference Finals this year and still get Cam Boozer. That's sort of what you set up. You set up that possibility for yourself. Like this is a season where whatever happens, they should at least be in a playoff race, right?
Yeah.
So this is a season where the Grizzlies should be in a playoff race and have you get to scout, you get to be in a playoff race and scout the draft at the same time, and there's no conflict between the two. I don't think the blow it up thing is I don't think it's at all the plan.
Yeah,
but I don't think they're unaware that it's easier to do that. We've gotten off the Bane contract, and now you have Cedric Howard, and you have 2 first round picks in next year's draft. And you have Jaren Jackson under contract in a way that I think it's going to be attractive to other teams. I think this is all about John Morant. So much is about John Morant. But if John Morant plays 65 games and makes all NBA next season, the full steam ahead. That's the plan. If John Morant plays 25 games and there's wonky disagreement about doing a contract extension, then who knows, right? Yeah. I think it's going to come down to that more than anything else.
Yeah, and I'm not even thinking about blowing it up. I'm just thinking about 2 years ago. It's John and Jaren are on the roster, but they missed some games and we stink. And so now nobody's coming back, this year. We should probably to wrap up. We should probably cover the fact that the roster still has some issues as far as giving Jaren his agreed upon contract. Right. At Summer League, I guess my anticipation in Las Vegas, when all the teams were together, this is where either a player moves off the roster or the Cole Anthony situation is resolved.
I don't think. I mean, telephones work. I don't think the summer league and being around each other has any bearing on this at all. I think what is likely happening is the musical chairs of rosters filling up around the league.
Yeah.
And so let's just do this real quick, so maybe people have a little bit of understanding of what's going on or what I think is going on. So the context here is the Grizzlies have, I think, 5 free agency agreements, all of which agreed to, none of which have been signed or processed, right? So 3 with your own guys, Jaren Jackson Jr., Cam Spencer, Santi Aldama, 2 with outside free agents, Ty Jerome and Jock Landale. Now, the other four can happen in any order, but they can't happen until after the Jaren. And so for salary cap reasons, Jaren has to process first before any of the other 4 can process. The Jaren one can't process until they clear the cap space to renegotiate his current salary. And so the piece that everyone's waiting on is for them to clear the space to renegotiate Jaren. Once they do that, the other 4 can be signed. Okay, so why hasn't that happened? So that would be the question. So nobody's playing basketball other than Summer League anytime soon. And so one thing I think you can take from it not happening is that there's no pressure. There hasn't been pressure at this point to make it happen. The 5 players the Grizzlies have agreed to have agreements with are not in a hurry. They know the agreements are there. It's done. You're not playing basketball for 3 months. To this point, at least, there's not been pressure to process. Maybe that'll change tomorrow, the next day. I don't know. To this point, there hasn't been pressure. So I think in the absence of pressure, the Grizzlies are looking for the best way to clear that money. Now, they know they can do it. It's not a question of whether they can do it. They know they can do it. They have a fail-safe switch. The fail-safe switch is waiving and stretching the entirety of Cole Anthony's $13.1 million. You can waive that, stretch it over 3 seasons. That clears the space you need to do the Jaren. You could do that. You could have done that yesterday, a week ago. You do that tomorrow. You could always do that. So the fact that that hasn't happened yet tells me the Grizzlies are looking for a better way to clear that money.
Right.
Another thing it tells me, and this is context clues, I'm not reporting this, it tells me Cole Anthony doesn't have a set landing spot with one of the other 29 teams right now. Mm-hmm. Because if he had a set landing spot, he would be pressuring the Grizzlies to get this done so he can go sign with his other team. And if he had a set landing spot, the Grizzlies, I think, would go ahead and do it and say, you know what? We'll do the buyout. You give us back the amount, even if it's the minimum. You give us back the amount you're signing with this other team. We'll do the wave and stretch at a lower number. We'll get it done. We'll move forward. We'll stop looking for something even better. We'll take that bird in hand. Well, I think that bird is not in hand. And in the absence of that bird being in hand, and in the absence of pressure from the other players to go ahead and get it done, I think they're probably waiting it out and seeing if Cole Anthony can find a landing spot. You know, Chris Paul hasn't signed anywhere. That's a point guard.
That's right.
There are multiple teams interested in signing Chris Paul. Whoever doesn't get him, maybe they'll sign Cole Anthony. You know, Damian Lillard, people think about he might sign somewhere. People think Bradley Beal's about to get bought out, and then he would re-sign somewhere. So I think right now there's a little bit of a waiting game to see if either A, Cole Anthony can find a landing spot with another team that would lessen the buyout the Grizzlies have to do, or things shake out in a way that there's enough space created somewhere where they can still try to do some kind of trade, either to move Cole Anthony into space, which I think is unlikely, or to move him for a smaller contract they would then have to buy out. So I sort of grabbed the ball and ran with it, but I don't know where you wanted to go, but I think that's what the landscape is right now.
Yeah, no, you explained that very, very well. The thing I think about at Summer League is just, I mean, yes, you say phones work, but also last year, I mean, my impression was Zach Kleiman was walking around trying to give away Zaire Williams, and he finally did. Right. I mean, like last year in Vegas, we were like, hey, the word on the street is Zaire Williams is available. Does anybody want him? And then that finally went down. So we knew at Summer League, like Zaire Williams is getting out of here.
I was hoping Zach Kleiman, when they played the Jazz, would find an Ainge to sit with at the game and like work out a little Kyle Anderson, John Conchar swap.
Well, we can't do that. That eats into the cap space. It'd be
you can agree to it and process it later.
Chris, what do you feel about? I said that was the last thing. The acquisition price. I talked about this on Fast Break Breakfast. The acquisition price the Magic paid for Desmond Bane, and then you look at Cam Johnson was gotten for less than 1 pick. Like Cam Johnson was gotten for 1 pick plus an albatross salary. Norm Powell was given away. Colin Sexton was dumped with the second round pick. I know Desmond Bane is better, but like, is he 4 first round picks better?
Well, especially that 1 pick. So when the trade happened, I was thinking, okay, I recognize immediately that the very lightly protected, swap connected 2026 pick was the best individual thing in the trade. So I was thinking, like, who would you flip that for, right?
Right.
I was thinking, like, would I offer that for Tamani Kamara? I love Tamani Kamara.
Oh, I would.
Like,
Trailblazers would say no, I think.
Well, that was my first instinct.
Yeah.
That I would offer it, and I don't know if it would be enough, right? That was my first instinct, because I love Tamani Kamara.
Yeah.
I think he's a perfect player for the Grizzlies.
Amazing player.
But then I started to look at it, and I hadn't really paid attention to that draft. Again, maybe Phoenix surprises, but you look at the West, you look at that Phoenix roster, that is almost certainly going to be, it's highly likely to be a pick that pre-lottery is in that 5 to 10 range, right? The odds of moving up into the top 4 are pretty good for a pick in that range. And I haven't watched any of these guys play, but everyone thinks the draft is like absolutely loaded. There are at least 3 like perennial all-star franchise player. Just the idea that you might have like a 15% chance to get one of those guys, and you got 3 other picks and a swap, and like I know Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was underwater from a quote unquote value standpoint. Yeah. He's a good NBA player. Like I think they're super happy to have him on the floor. As good as Desmond Bane is, I do think Desmond Bane was like the 50th best player in the league, right? And is Cedric Howard going to be a top 50 player? Probably not, but maybe. Is whoever you get with that draft pick going to be a top 50 player? Probably not, but maybe. But there's a chance that one of those 2 things ends up being a top 20, top 25 player, right? And so I sort of understand the swing given the value you got on that. But I agree to your point. The Cam Johnson thing you brought up.
Yeah.
They got, I know they got a quote unquote great pick because it's unprotected in 2032.
Yeah.
And like Jokic will be gone and who knows, but also who knows? Like Denver might be good in a different way. We know what Phoenix is next season. We know what the Wizards are. Like, we can calculate the value of that pick much more cleanly. We also know what the draft is like.
I can't believe the Nets, that trade seems so bad to me for them. By the way, you apparently lower on Desmond Bane than many national publications. I feel like Desmond Bane's like a top 40 in a lot of these top 100 ranks. Like the Ringer had him like 36 or something.
Most recently, I don't think they did. I think they had
47. 47 is their latest. All right. That feels fair. Below Zion Williamson. Come on. Anyways, thanks, Chris, as always, for coming on and talking Grizzlies with me. If you guys want more from Chris, get that over at the Daily Memphian. Listen to their Daily Memphian Grizzlies podcast. You want more from me? You can get that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. You guys have a great Wednesday. I'll talk to you soon. Next time from Las Vegas, and go Grizz.